Packers-Titans, next game that we're getting to. Green Bay wins this one. Speaking of Will Levis, great transition, Dalton. Excellent work. Packers win this one 30-14. If Will Levis won, it would have been a better transition. But let's take a look at the top graded players on Green Bay. Jair Alexander tops the list, 89.2. He had a pick six in this one. Shout out Will Levis again. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt, next highest graded is 78.7. Edge rusher Preston Smith with a 77.3. Running back Josh Jacobs with a 77.0. And then running back Emmanuel Wilson, I feel like maybe one of the best surprise players of the early season here. 76.7 in this one. Malik Willis, 75.9. Speaking of guys that have been really great surprises so far here, 3 weeks into the year, Malik Willis. And I know we'll dig into him in a little bit. Tennessee Titans, their top graded players, DeAndre Hopkins, with number one on the list with a 79.0. Offensive tackle J.C. Latham, the rookie, with a 75.6. Defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat with an 86.0. Guard Peter Skoronski with a 66.6. And the defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons with a 66.6 as well. Will Levis, yeah, again, not a great day. 54.7 overall grade for Will Levis. What's the stat that told the story here, Dalton?
I think once again with the Titans, it's the same. It's been the same thing every week. It's turnovers, and I know a couple of them were later, 3 turnovers. But that the Jair Alexander pick six, that throw was just about as egregious as the turnovers that he had in the first 2 games. I mean, he just got baited into a throw by one of the best corners in football. It makes the game 17-7. Brian Callahan gets away from any sort of script that they would have had. They only ran 9 design run plays the entire game, even though 17-7 in the second quarter is not insurmountable. So you get away from the run game. They only ran 18 plays in the first half. This very much, in a similar sense, went just like the Packers game against the Colts went last week. Yes, the Packers ran the ball well. Yes, I'll get into their run game in a second, but they held the ball. Malik Willis played well, all of that stuff. But the Titans also just did not sustain drives, and the turnovers, it's just killing them. You can't have a back-breaking, game-changing turnover every single week. And I just wonder, I don't know if they pull the plug. I don't know if you let a young kid ride through it. But they're not just mistakes. They're back-breaking mistakes. That pick six, the game was 10-7, and the Titans had looked okay up to that point. The first drive was good. They just cannot continue to have Levis make back-breaking mistakes that turn football games upside down, because it's 3 weeks in a row with this, and that's. For as much as the Packers were going to be conservative, what is the one way the Packers could really run away with this game? It's turnovers, and you're just handing them points. So I don't know how much longer Tennessee, if they get more mistakes like that, they can live with this.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know. My stat that told the story is you live and die by Will Levis, and I think that's the story of this season, because I don't really see a need to go to Mason Rudolph. Like, he's not your franchise quarterback. Maybe Will Levis still is. Now, he's struggling mightily right now, but that's sort of who Levis is, right? He's this big-armed quarterback. He's going to give you the highs and the lows. He's very much on the Jameis Winston type of spectrum here of types of quarterbacks that we have in this league. He is that archetype of a player where you just got to live with those highs and the lows. I think back to the Jameis 30-30 season that he had, where people every single week, it was different. Oh, turnover-worthy plays mattered most. Oh, big-time throws mattered most. And it was just wins and losses all over the place for the Buccaneers. And obviously you move on because you just can't handle that inconsistency after, I think that was year 4 for Jameis.
That sounds right.
It must have been either 4 or 5 from him, because it was right at the end of his rookie season, and they opted to not re-sign him.
I thought it was year 5. I think it might have been 5.
So at that point, you had enough evidence to make that decision.
And Tom Brady was on the table.
And Tom Brady obviously
that helps.
Yeah, he was on the horizon. But with Will Levis, he does some good things for you, but obviously it's just it's the up and down. 15 explosive plays is 11th in the NFL in the pass game. So he has that going for him. But the turnover-worthy plays, the 5 turnover-worthy plays, that's 4th in the league. So he's on the high end of the spectrum of both of these things. Unless you get in a situation where the locker room really starts to turn on you, I don't think you move on from him. I think you just, if there is no point if the locker room still loves Will Levis, even through the highs and the lows and some of these crushing losses, I think you just stick with him this year. What is Mason Rudolph going to do for
nothing.
you? You're not going to make the playoffs.
I think
nothing's going to happen there. All you do is you maybe get a better draft pick, but even if that's the case, who's going to give you the higher draft pick? Feels like Will Levis at this point.
Could be. I mean, if he keeps turning the ball over like this, yeah. And regardless, I think games like this, in these first 3 games, it feels like each week we inch closer towards talking about who they're taking next year, right? Coming out of the draft. And it's a weird class, and we're trying to figure out who the top quarterback is. But we start to think about that. And look, Will Levis was, the first pick of the second round, was it? So you don't have like the 5th-year option and all this stuff to worry about. It's a lot easier to move on from a guy when he's not a first-round pick. I think the more games that we see like this, the more we have that conversation with the Titans. And right now, look, facts are facts. They're the only team that's played 3 games that doesn't have a win. And it's because and they've all been. This game wasn't as close because it got away from them earlier, but the first 2 were very winnable.
Yeah,
and it is the reason that they've lost these games.
And you get the win probably if Mason Rudolph plays in week 1. I'll give you that. I just don't think it does anything for your franchise.
It
so
doesn't.
unless you are losing the locker room, I think this is your dude. So we'll see moving forward. Most impressive, who you got?
Packers run game again.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Packers.
It's just the Packers. Look, 188 rush yards as a group, 9 missed tackles forced. We saw both running backs in the top 5 for them this week, Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. Wilson's a great story right now, and giving them, with A.J. Dillon out for the season, giving them that second back that they need so Josh Jacobs isn't getting 40 carries a game. And you know the one thing I like, okay, remember I went last week on my whole rant about, okay, the Packers all of a sudden are a gap scheme team now, right? And we're running power and counter, we're pulling guards, we're doing all these things, and we just made a whole new offense, right? Trev, you ever see those people that like they tell you they're going on some diet and they do it for like 3 weeks and then they're just like, nah, not for me. I'm good.
Yes.
Apparently that's Matt LaFleur. Because now this week he goes right back to 63.
Now he's getting in shape.
Yeah. Well, no, they've been in shape regardless. I ain't worried about the Packers being in shape right now. But he goes now. All of that and all the messing around for 2 weeks with gap schemes and last week with all this fun stuff. Now it's like, all right, we're not fooling everybody again. Let's just go with the bread and butter now. And they go back to 63% zone runs, and you see read options because you can do that sort of thing with Malik Willis, and you see the zone runs working, and it's 5.1 yards per carry, and it's just like okay, we just went right back now to who we are after experimenting and actually having it work for a couple of weeks. And now you might have both things in their arsenal in that offense, and to win these 2 games without Jordan Love because of this run game. I mean, what else can you say about Willis, about the run game, about the way LaFleur has coached these 2 games? I think they're 2 of the best games he's ever coached, first of all. And honestly, I think through 2 weeks, I think these 2 wins they've gotten with Malik Willis are the 2 most consequential wins that we have seen so far from any team. They could have crashed and been done and been 0-3 or worse and waiting on Jordan Love to get back. This could have been awful. This could have been that knee injury to Jordan Love could have just ruined their whole season. And Malik Willis and Matt LaFleur and this run game have saved it with the strategizing, and then just the execution's been flawless, honestly. Get a big early turnover, the pick 6 on defense, but they just flipped to a style of ball that was going to work for these 2 weeks. And now you're probably going to get Jordan Love back next week, and now you start looking like the Packers, the way they were supposed to look. These are 2 huge wins, and if they make a deep playoff run or even a Super Bowl run this year, they're going to look back at these 2 wins as a very crucial part of their season.
I think that's a really good call out. It's the meme, the never let them know your next move meme, and that's the Packers run game right now, and it's working to perfection for them. My most impressive, it has to be Malik Willis. You know, Matt LaFleur talked after the game. They're not putting a million things on this guy's plate. They don't need him to throw the ball 30, 40 times a game. But he's exactly what they need right now. And he is letting a good offense and a good offensive line and a good game plan specifically speak for this offense. But I don't mean that to downplay how he has played either, right? Because when you think about a guy like Malik Willis, okay, he's got his rushing ability. He's still green on experience at the NFL level. Let's make things easy for him, right? Let's give him the RPO options. Let's give him some play action options. 12 of his 26 dropbacks this past week included RPO or play action. But Dalton, of the 14 that did not have RPO or play action attached to it, that was his highest passing grade. His highest passing grade was actually on true, regular-ass drop-back sets. Get there, go to the first read, go to the second read, 80.3 passing grade with a big-time throw and no turnover-worthy plays. So it is not just the fact that Matt LaFleur is a great offensive mind. He is not making this like the simplest offense for Malik Willis to run. there are times when they ask him to be a drop back passer, to scan the field, to know where receivers are going to be, that you only met 3 weeks ago. And you're doing it in NFL action now. And you're preparing for a different defense every single week. And Malik has done so beautifully. Again, I thought my talking point here with Malik Willis was going to be, oh, they're making it so much easier for him. They're simplifying everything. It is easier when the run game is going as well as it is for the Packers.
And those receivers are that good. When you have that many receivers that get themselves open.
But he is very much operating this offense in multiple facets. And you love to see that from Malik Willis. My most disappointing really quick in this game, Titans run game. You talk about how great the Packers run game was. Titans run game just so far this season. Back-to-back weeks of over 130 yards rushing in week 1 and week 2, which is not bad. The grades weren't super high, but at least the overall production was there. Only 33 rushing yards in week 3. That will never be a recipe for a Will Levis team to win a football game. This team was predicated on running the football over the last couple of years. Now, I know Derrick Henry's not in the building, right? It's not the same team that it was when Mike Vrabel was the head coach. But for that to be so much of an identity for you, and then really not something that you can lean on at all, that's a piece of this puzzle that if that doesn't get better, the Levis situation is not going to get better anyway. So they've got to surround him with a better run game.
Well, and they only called 9 running plays in this game.
Yeah,
you just can't go away from it.
It wasn't there.
Team number 2 on the list here, and there's a couple more coming, of they will not win without balance. That's Tennessee. Real quick for me, most disappointing. They lost Azeez Al-Shire in the offseason. They went and got Kenneth Murray Jr. And you're hoping for maybe new bit of scenery, get away from the Chargers and what they had going, Brandon Staley, and maybe improve. So, but it's still kind of struggling in run defense. And I know again the Packers' run game has been really good, but 45.8 run D grade in this game, 29.4 for the season is last in the NFL among all linebackers. Kenneth Murray still trying to figure it out in run defense, and it's tough because you got a good guy next to him in Ernest Jones too. But just still trying to figure it out even in a new location, and hopefully he can by the end of the season, because they look, Tavondre Sweat and some of those defensive linemen are playing well up front, and we're just seeing, look, and the funny part to me too, real quick, on the Titans, 5 highest graded players in this game, right? Hopkins, Latham, Sweat, Skoronski, and Simmons. If those 5 guys are their highest graded players in a game, you would think they're winning. I mean, but it's just the core around it needs to be better, and Murray, especially behind Sweat in that D line, it's a problem right now. They really was struggling to see where he was going yesterday against the Packers.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ernest Jones, who they are even lucky to have, right? Getting him from the Rams right before the season started. So.